Now we turn our attention to another matter that is of import. We talked about his op-ed the other day in the Wall Street Journal, Blacklists Are the Rage in Publishing, and Thomas Spence picked the term blacklisting purposely because it harkens back to another era, a censorious era that we are rightly condemn, except today the left embraces. Americans argue, write, preach, campaign, and vote. They don't blacklist, wrote Thomas Spence, who is the president and publisher of Regnery Publishing. And he joins us now. Thomas Spence, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, Dan. Thanks very much for having me on.
Tell us about the letter that was circulating among publishers. I hadn't heard of it until I read your op-ed, and that is really a development. We're so focused on big tech. The publishing companies have big cultural power, too, as gatekeepers, and this letter you referenced is really chilling.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw it, actually, and I thought I was as cynical as, anybody in the business. There's an author, a fellow who writes novels and comic books for teenagers, composed an open letter to the American publishing industry, and has collected more than 500 signatures from people who describe themselves as publishing professionals. And calling on, he doesn't use the word, but it's exactly what it is, calling for a blacklist of everybody who, quote, participated in the Trump administration, and insisting that no one in that category should ever be offered a book contract. And goes on to describe them as, compares this to Son of Sam laws, which prevent criminals from benefiting financially from writing about their crimes, and calls people who participated in the Trump administration monsters and criminals. It's not surprising exactly if you know a lot of people who work in publishing or a lot of other industries like that, but it's pretty naked. Usually they don't come out and say it quite so plainly, which is, useful.
Well, and here's the thing, too. I mean, you can say whatever you want about President Trump, but you think about some of the really talented people that were in his administration, and that doesn't describe everybody in his administration, but it certainly describes somebody like William Barr. William Barr is a serious person. You can agree or disagree. You can be upset about the lack of conclusion to the Durham investigation before the changeover in administrations and so on and so forth. But to suggest that William Barr, with the life that he has lived and the accomplishments he had, for example, just use him as an example, doesn't have anything important to say, wouldn't potentially write an interesting book on the law, on a free society. The speech he gave at Notre Dame alone could be the basis of a book. But to suggest that he shouldn't be allowed, or that no one should offer him a book contract because of his affiliation as the Attorney General of during part of the Trump administration. I mean, it's just absurd. It's anti-intellectual, which is, to me, the biggest indictment you can make of all of these pseudo-intellectuals who hold themselves out as deep thinkers.
Yes. And by the way, Bill Barr, if you're listening to this show, Regnery is waiting for you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be a conduit. Make sure I get my 10% on that deal.
All right, it's a deal. We'd love to have a book by Bill Barr. But, I think that, and he's a perfect example of the kind of person that, that these, less than intellectually formed people are wanting to exclude. I live in Washington, D.C., and I have been privileged to know quite a number of people who served in the Trump administration, from the level of cabinet secretary on down. And I have been deeply impressed by the caliber of person that was attracted to government service and the sacrifice that most of these people made to do it, because they didn't need these jobs. It was usually a financial sacrifice. And I mean, they're just incredibly gifted, talented people. And to say that, quite apart from even calling them criminals and monsters, to say that they have nothing to contribute to the literary world, I think it shows how insular these people are.
Well, sure. I mean, how about Dr. Ben Carson? I mean, before he was a Trump administration official, they made a frickin' movie about him, but now he's uninteresting, unworthy.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, the signatories to this letter, who most of whom identify themselves in some way with an affiliation, a professional affiliation, appear to be junior level people, not the people running Simon and Schuster and Random House.
Not yet.
Not yet, and that's the thing. It shows that this mentality, this incredibly censorious mentality, pervades the lower ranks, the junior ranks of the publishing industry. And it's for one thing, those are the people that will be running the publishing houses in a few years. Also, I think they have influence and power with their companies that is maybe out of proportion to their experience and wisdom. And the cancel culture is alive and well, and we've seen it a couple of times in the past few years, where the junior ranks of a publishing house rise in revolt when their company is publishing somebody they don't like. But and the management is afraid or just doesn't want to bother or whatever, but makes decisions that are against the business interests of the company to mollify these people. And I don't think they have earned that kind of power yet.
Well,
so you look at the list of people who signed this book and you think, yeah, well, it's a bunch of junior assistant coordinating editors. But there's more to it than meets the eye.
Well, speaking of the cancel culture, I mean, President Trump and all, the social media platforms that he's been banned from, and we're learning that, just a day after Joe Biden was inaugurated, now Facebook is going to decide whether or not to have him back, and they're going to leave it up to their oversight board for their binding review. But maybe Facebook and Instagram, maybe they need Trump?
Yes, I think. Oh well, I think they probably do. Yeah, the power of big tech in this area is related to what's going on in publishing. It's even scarier because Facebook and Google have power over people's lives that Simon & Schuster and Macmillan don't. And
or Amazon with book sales.
Or Amazon, exactly. Yes, tell me all about it.
Yeah.
So, and the two have kind of come together. The two topics, book publishing and big tech, have come together in the story of Senator Josh Hawley last week, who has written a book called The Tyranny of Big Tech that is about the monopolistic power of these, this handful of companies. And Simon & Schuster was going to publish it in this coming summer. But after Senator Hawley contested the certification of the electoral vote in the Senate on January the 6th, Simon & Schuster the next day canceled his book. And they issued a very vaguely worded statement that suggested that Senator Hawley was responsible for the violent mob that stormed the Capitol, which I think is an unreasonable accusation. And so the cancel culture came for Senator Hawley. Fortunately, Regnery Publishing was waiting in the wings.
There you go.
And we picked it up. It's another example of how the woke mob in these companies can force the companies to do things that are plainly against their own interest.
Well,
Simon and Schuster.
Sorry to interrupt, but I mean, Regnery, going back to Henry Regnery, publishing conservative books in the 50s, like God and Man at Yale, Buckley's opener.
Yeah.
I mean, conservative books weren't exactly popular then either. But I like what you write about Hawley's book. We don't have to agree with everything or anything Mr. Hawley does. We only ask if his book is well crafted and has something true and worthwhile to say. And if the answer is yes, then we want to publish it. I mean, I can't imagine conservatives at the time or today saying, let's organize so that nobody publishes Gore Vidal. Let's organize so nobody publishes John Kenneth Galbraith. The whole idea is that you have to confront different viewpoints, different schools of thought, different policy proposals, different worldviews. That's the whole point of this. If something has something important to say, they maybe start from something true and get to something that's less than true, but you have to hash it out. And we would never be in the business of trying to knock out left-wing authors, giving two examples from the Buckley era, and yet that's not the case here today with the Jacobins that are ascendant.
That's right. And I mean, I would never suggest that a person can't do something so bad that he should not be published. There are some,
of course,
there's some people out there that Regnery would not publish, because they're very bad people. But that's not what we're talking about in Senator Hawley's case or the hypothetical examples you gave. I mean, there are a lot of people who just want to cancel, to blacklist people for simply having views or affiliations that they find objectionable. And it's a lot easier to shut them up than to respond to them, I guess.
Well, we're certainly happy that Regnery is still out there. And as you rightly point out, we could be targeted next, but this is the path that we're choosing, and we need more people that really believe in core American values and the desire to live in a free-thinking, free-speaking, free society to follow Regnery's example. Thomas Spence, president and publisher of Regnery Publishing. Check out his piece, which I'll retweet again. Blacklists are the rage in publishing, and just this comment. Americans argue, write, preach, campaign, and vote. They don't blacklist. Great statement of principle. Thomas Spence, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Here's a fact. Too much of today's journalism is liberal and politically biased. So where should you turn to get accurate, leading-edge information that you can trust? The Epoch Times. The Epoch Times covers the news the way you need it, unfiltered and accurate. Cutting-edge topics like the danger of the Chinese Communist Party, the truth about the presidential election, the pandemic, Russia, the Middle East, the economy, and news you won't hear anywhere else. The Epoch Times is free from the influence of governments, corporations, or political parties. You get to form your own opinions. Here's a special introductory offer. You can get 1-month subscription to the Epoch Times weekly print newspaper, as well as unlimited access to their dynamic website for just $1. That's right, $1. Go right now to trustednewspaper.com. That's trustednewspaper.com to subscribe. Do it now. Trustednewspaper.com.
Spills happen every day in your workplace, anywhere gasoline, diesel, machine crude, or cooking oils are used. These spills not only disrupt workflow production, but are hazardous to employees and the public. You need a team that can come in and clean up that spill and get your crew back to work and remove the ugly, unsightly stains. You need Cabino Environmental Field Services, an environmental response team to the rescue. Using sustainable, all-natural green products, they mitigate the spills and extract the stain from the pavement. The only byproduct is the used oil absorbent that gets recycled as a fuel source. This is one of the most economic